It doesn't have a lot of the physiological hormone and skin-to-skin kind of bonding benefits for the baby and the mom. But as far as the like chemicals and the antibodies and all of the live stuff in the milk, as long as the baby gets the milk and it's reasonably fresh, either it's been frozen well, properly or anything like that, then it's definitely, it's like I said over here, how the World Health Organization states it. Number 1 is breastfeeding. Number 2 is moms express breast milk. So that's definitely really valuable health-wise for the baby, and it's definitely going to help with all of that big long list of things like breastfeeding for the baby prevents obesity, helps prevent asthma, helps prevent ear infections, helps prevent this whole long list of things. It's definitely going to do that. The trick with pumping, though, is that because it doesn't get as much from the breast, and because it can be kind of inconvenient and a little bit distancing, a lot of people just don't continue with it as long. So in itself, it's fine and it does what it does and it's really important. But if it's presented as equal, or like, oh, it's just as good, it's going to work just as well, it probably isn't going to work as long, as well, as efficiently. And then, like I was saying earlier, there's all the questions of like all the plastic and what do we want to be doing with all this plastic. But it is an extremely, extremely valuable tool and really, really important to us when we talk about breastfeeding, especially breastfeeding in a society where so many women have to work. And so many women have to work really early. Going to work at 6 weeks postpartum, which is when state disability ends in California, is really, really early with a new baby. I mean, how old is your baby?
4.5 weeks.
4.5 weeks. Okay, that guy's really little, It's really early to be going back to work. And it's not that women who go back to work at 6 weeks are doing something mean to their children. It's that the context that we all support, or that we all need to work on changing, is that that's when they have to go back to work. And I hear a lot of women who will say, breastfeeding sounds great, it sounds really nice, I know it's good for the baby, I know it's good for me, I know it can help me prevent breast cancer, I know it helps me lose weight better, I know all these things, I know it's great for the baby, but I'm just going to have to go back to work at 6 weeks and it's going to be too hard to stop. If I breastfeed now for this first couple weeks and I have to go back to work, it's going to be really hard. So they'll only do it, they won't do it at all, or they'll do it for 1 to 2 weeks and be like, okay, I'm ready for the bottle, to make a transition easier to go back to work. And that right there, I think, really demonstrates the really bad social, political situation we're in as far as supporting women breastfeeding. Because it's not that they don't want to, it's not that they don't understand the public health, like the health benefits, it's not that they think it's so gross that they would never want to have their baby at the breast, it's that it's just kind of like mentally and financially impossible.
Do you think a lot of women give up on it because of the pain?
I think a lot of women give up on it because they don't have good support in the first couple of weeks. And so whether, for some women it's pain, for some women it's not painful, but they've been awake for 72 hours and they can't sleep. For some women it's just confusing and overwhelming. So whether it's pain or whatever one of those other aspects, not having somebody who really has breastfed before or really understands breastfeeding, or not having a bunch of people to call and be like, this is harder than I thought, is this normal? And not having someone to say this is normal. And I think that is also really lacking in the U.S. There's a... Me?
Well, I'm interested in hearing more about the contamination of the breast milk and how women store the contaminants for their whole lives. It's pretty frightening. Like, first of all, is there any, I'm sure there's studies done about what happens because of the contamination, but also, like, is there anything that, I know that we have to, like, stop polluting our world, but for an individual woman, is there something that can be done to make it better? Besides eating, like, organic food, but if it's stored up your whole life, it's kind of a catch-22, I feel like. Is there anything that can be done on an individual basis?
So they've definitely shown very clearly that it is still better to breastfeed the baby than not to breastfeed the baby. And they've actually, some of the studies that they've done with women who are in particularly contaminated areas, like parts of Norway, they expected, you know, if the mom has a lot of mercury in her body and then, or, you know, whatever the other contaminants are, they expect to see more in the baby, and they actually don't see as much as they thought. So that, you know, it sounds really, really horrible and scary, and it is horrible and scary, but it's a little bit less than they actually anticipated actually went to the baby. But I think it's one of those things where we really have to think outside the individual. There's really not a lot you can do. You can look up every possible like fancy organic detox method, and they may or may not work, and we don't have any really good evidence to show if they work or not. Eating food that is not contributing to adding more toxins is obviously going to be better. So eating organic food, drinking lots of water in general is just good for removing extra toxins out of your body. And maybe not drinking water from bottles, which is just contributing to more toxins in the world. But I think it's one of those things where we have to just think outside of the individual. Like, there are some things that we can't escape, no matter how much money we have. You know, you have a ton of money, you can buy the perfect food, you can live in the perfect place with the best air in the world, and find your, you know, your mansion in that place. And this is one of those things that's still going to be with you. And I think it's one of those really important points that to really connect with most of the people in the world who have to stay exactly where they are, eat the food that they have, and we all just need to work on not adding more to that burden, which would mean not buying as much stuff, because most of that contaminant just comes from plain old factory, and it's the factory of who knows what. It's the factory of everything. So just plain buying less stuff, buying things that are more local, not buying things from other people, trading stuff, all that stuff to just do less, use less. Yeah. What can I? Are we done? 30? Okay.
Can I comment on that too? If you're interested in that issue, there's a really fantastic book called Having Faith by I can't remember, Sandra Steingraber, I think is her name. She's an ecologist who is also a cancer survivor and then becomes pregnant. And it talks about her story of like investigating just what you're saying, like all of body burden in terms of chemicals and all kinds of stuff. And it's really beautifully written because she's pregnant at the time that she's writing it. So it's a nice balance between like many things that you know that are really scary and like the process of being pregnant and developing a baby and everything. So.
Yeah.
And it has a huge resource section in the back. So.
That's a fantastic book, and Sandra Steingraber actually, is actually in the process of publishing her next book. That will be her third book, which is about having children and having children in a toxic world, basically. Her first book is about having bladder cancer, which is an extremely, the kind of cancer she got is, it's not genetically related at all, and there's a lot of people in her area who had it, and she's adopted. And people tried to tell her, like, oh, it's genetic, oh, it's this, it's that. And she's like, yeah, right, it's genetic. Like, these people in my family have it, and I'm not related to them. And turned out to be, she was able to make some links about contaminants in her area. Her second book is about being pregnant and knowing all this stuff, and, like, figuring it out. And then her next book is about having small children and knowing all this stuff and making these decisions. Somebody else had a hand. Yeah.
Another thing that happens to women is that sometimes the baby is a little small, you know, just barely 5 pounds, 7 ounces or something. Maybe has a little jaundice or something, and will have to stay in the hospital longer than the mother. That's when it's difficult to breastfeed because there's no separation. They may give you a breast pump, but not very much instruction. So that's when your milk can just decrease, or you could even lose it. Just dry up.
Absolutely. Birthing practices, and this is where I come from it with my work and my training, is birthing practices tremendously contribute to the success or difficulty of a breastfeeding relationship. And in the U.S., there's nothing about the Nestle boycott, nothing about actually like marketing of breast milk substitutes, but there is something called the baby-friendly childbirth initiative,